What are the main things you're going to need at the Canton Fair if you decide to go? So obviously the first thing is you're going to need a visa, which makes sense. You're going to need a visa if you go to China anyway. But more specifically, if you do decide to visit the Canton Fair, you're going to apply for a Canton Fair specific visa, which is very easy to do by applying through the Canton Fair's website, and then you take the invitation letter down to the consulate. They'll issue you the appropriate visa. You're going to obviously need your hotel bookings arranged. You're going to need to know where you're going to be staying well in advance. I suggest staying somewhere fairly central, so don't stay in the outskirts nearby an airport where it's probably going to take you close to an hour to get to the fair there and back. After you've been walking around the fair all day, the last thing you want to do is sit in traffic at 7 p.m. in Guangzhou and get back to your hotel at 10. So make sure that you book a hotel which is quite central to the Canton Fair Pavilion. As I discussed in other parts, the Canton Fair is absolutely immense. It's 1.8 million square meters, okay? So you're gonna need to do a lot of planning to make sure that you make the best use of your time there. So visas, hotels, and of course your buyer's badge registration, which I strongly suggest you do well in advance, so that once you actually get to the fair, you literally give them your passport, you give them your business card, and they'll issue the badge for you there and then. If you actually get to the fair and haven't pre-registered and go through a long overseas buyer's queue, you're probably going to be there for quite a long time unnecessarily, probably 2 to 3 hours, given the amount of traders that come from all around the world to the fair, and a lot of them probably won't have pre-registered. So I strongly advise that you do pre-register before attending. The next step, wear a comfortable pair of walking shoes. I can't stress this enough. You are going to be walking up to 20 to 30 kilometers every single day, okay? Having a comfortable pair of walking shoes when you're visiting that many stands is going to be critical. Otherwise, your feet are going to be dead at the end of the day, and it's going to be an absolute struggle, nightmare attending day 2 if you decide to go for another 2 or 3 days or however long you decide to stay in China. So make sure that you wear and pack a comfortable pair of walking shoes. Which then leads on to your attire. What should you be wearing? How should you be dressed for the show? My advice to you is keep it smart cash. Definitely don't go wearing a 3-piece suit. It's completely unnecessary. First of all, it's a very casual fair in terms of the traders that are there. You'll probably see people even attending in tracksuits, right? The actual suppliers themselves are obviously all going to be suited and booted as they would be at a trade show as expected. But for you, just go there comfortable, smart casual, making a good impression, but definitely don't go in a suit. Probably at this time of year, you might want to take a jumper with you, but I wouldn't suggest wearing a blazer or a jacket, because when you're walking around all day, again, it's just gonna get super hot, and Guangzhou is a very, very humid place. So the next thing, business cards. Okay, so we discussed this a little bit yesterday, but this is something that I want to stress again today. The importance of having a business card in China is critical. When you're doing business in China, you have to have a business card. And if you want extra brownie points, get your business card printed both in English and in Chinese. So that means one side is going to have your English details, and on the flip side, your Chinese details. So you're going to have your address, your email, your phone number, and all your other details written out in Chinese. That's only if you want the extra brownie points for the suppliers. It will probably put you one step ahead of all the other suppliers or all the other traders that are attending the show. However, having said that, on the topic of business cards, as I suggested yesterday, make sure that the email address that you're using is a completely different email address to the one that you normally use. Simply because you're going to get inundated with emails, you're going to be handing out your cards. This is another thing on the topic of business cards. I don't want to drag this out too much, but with your business cards, be very careful as to who you're giving them out to, because a lot of people are going to be asking for your card, but if you don't plan on doing business with them, just politely decline and walk away. Okay, that's probably the best tip I can give you, because if you just hand out a card to them, they are going to keep constantly emailing you, and I think a lot of suppliers in China don't understand what unsubscribe means in terms of emails, right? So create a new email address, try to have your business cards printed in English and Chinese, and just kind of be careful as to who you're giving your card out to, just to make best use of the show. Next tip, at your hotel, and this is really, really important, you won't believe the importance of this, is have a massive breakfast at your hotel before you go to the show. Why? Because of the amount of walking that you're going to be doing at that show. You're going to be walking, like I said, 20 to 30 kilometers, right? And you're going to need to be fueled up for the day. If you haven't had a big breakfast, come 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever time, you're going to be absolutely starving because you'll have already walked like a good 10K or something. So make sure that you load up on a good breakfast at the hotel. Healthy breakfast, something that's going to keep you loaded with energy, keep you primed, and keep you in a peak state. The next thing is to pack with you is probably to have, obviously, your mobile, but your mobile loaded with a VPN on it. So in China, a lot of social sites, if not all of the major social sites, which we're used to here in the West, are blocked. So that's Facebook, that's YouTube, that's Instagram, that's Twitter. All the major social sites that you'll probably be wanting to log into are blocked in China. So make sure that you have a good VPN installed on your phone. A VPN that I can recommend that I've often used in China, and sometimes they block them, sometimes it's very hit or miss. But ExpressVPN is one of the options, but there are thousands of options out there. I'll leave it to you guys to explore which ones you think are the best ones. It's important to have a VPN installed on your phone. It's equally important to make sure that you've got a power bank with you. So you're going to be taking loads of pictures at the show. So make sure that you're gonna constantly have your phone on charge. So whilst you can actually rent the power banks at the show, for all you know, by the time you get there, they might all be gone, none will be available. So it's better to just bring your own power bank with you, just to make sure that your phone's constantly on charge. And talking about phones, local SIM card. As soon as you land at Guangzhou airport, make sure that you get yourself a local SIM card for your phone with 4G access that will allow you to access your emails, allow you to access whatever websites you need to access, WhatsApp and Skype and whatever sites you need to get onto, assuming that you've now got this VPN installed on your phone. Another tip is take either a tablet, an iPad, or a notebook, depending on how old school you are. For me personally, I still go with notebooks because I like to make handwritten notes. And as soon as I get a supplier's business card, what I'll do is I will staple that card into the notebook and make notes as I'm speaking to the supplier regarding whatever products it is that we're discussing. Because you're taking this notebook with you, that notebook is going to get filled up pretty quickly. So I suggest that you also monitor your time very wisely. Don't spend too much at any single stand. The Chinese are going to try and lure you in, make you sit down, perhaps offer you coffee, offer you water, give you a seat to rest on, try to pick your brain, try to talk to you about your business. Remember that you've got a limited time at the show to make as much impact and as much use of the show as possible, right? So you want to make sure that you're literally counting the minutes that you're spending with each supplier. I wouldn't give each supplier any more than 2 to 3 minutes unless you've seriously found like a really hot selling product and you're definitely planning on working with that supplier. Maximum 5 to 10, no longer than that. But it's really easy to get caught up in long conversations unnecessarily with suppliers, and those can drag on, taking up half an hour out of your time. Considering there's only 8 hours in the day for you to be at the fair, that means that's half an hour out of your 8 hours gone talking to one person, and there's 25,000 potential suppliers to visit. So make sure that you do plan and use your time as wisely as possible. Another thing, bring relevant snacks with you guys. There are no like protein bars there. So if you're a health freak like myself, make sure that you take protein bars. You know, if you're vegetarian or vegan, make sure that you take some kind of meal replacement shake with you, like Soylent or Huel or something else that's going to keep you fueled, because generally the food that you'll find at the Canton Fair is going to be McDonald's, Papa John's, very greasy Chinese fry-ups, like probably stuff that you don't want to be fueled on whilst you're at the show. On that topic, when it comes to lunch, make sure that you're taking your lunch at around 11. I know that sounds really early to be having lunch. There's a very specific reason for that. All the suppliers, like clockwork, at 12 o'clock are all going to be rushing to the canteen to go and grab food. And you do not want to be stuck in 2 hours worth of queue to go and grab a burger or a pizza or a sandwich or whatever it is. Like, it's much better for you to take your own snacks with you packed in your bag, and at least you can kind of have things to munch on along the way just to keep you fueled. You don't need to bring water, you don't need to bring drinks. I mean, I'd avoid eating chocolate generally, but they sell all of that at the show, even though the prices of the chocolate and the drinks and the water and the soft drinks and everything else are super overly inflated. But either way, you'll be able to find them pretty easily. But like I said, if you're into your health and your fitness, make sure that you at least take like a green powder, like, you know, one of those superfood powders, because again, you need to be keeping yourself healthy. You need to keep your mind in the right frame so you're able to do business as effectively as possible. So you need to keep your nutrition levels up to optimum level. So I recommend taking protein bars with you, green superfoods, and anything else, vitamins, supplements, whatever it is. Alongside Nurofen, paracetamol. These are things that you definitely cannot find easily in China, surprisingly enough. Like, you'd think that you'd be able to walk into the average pharmacy if you've got a headache and say, oh, I've got a headache, or I've got cold and flu symptoms, and that they're going to give you Nurofen paracetamol. They will not understand what you're talking about, because most pharmacies in China don't speak English. They're going to try and sell you some kind of weird Chinese herb, which could be dried tigers, whatever. Like, just guys, seriously, trust me on this one. Take Nurofen, take paracetamol, take diarrhea tablets with you. Like, however unfortunate it is to say this, if your stomach isn't adjusted to third world countries, something's going to trigger it when you get to China, right? So make sure that you've got those like instant diarrhea tablets. I'm sure you can pick them up from whatever local pharmacies in your home countries. Cold and flu medication as well. Hopefully you don't get sick, but because the hall's air conditioned and you're going from hot to cold, temperatures are very humid, you'll have been traveling, so your immune system will be low. It's always good to keep cold and flu medication. They will not sell Lemsip in these pharmacies again. They will not sell Nurofen cold and flu. So make sure that you've got these packed in your bags with you. On the topic of bags, right, what kind of bag do you need to take with you? Should you take a rucksack? Should you take a suitcase? So my personal recommendation is do whatever it is you want to do. But I would suggest just taking a rucksack on your back. And the reason for that being that people are going to be handing you catalogs, right? So you're going to need somewhere to store those catalogs. If you've got an iPad on you, definitely don't take a laptop, by the way. But if you do have an iPad on you, you're going to want somewhere to put your iPad. If you've got a notebook on you, you're probably going to want to have your notebook. You're not going to be wanting to hold it in your hand the whole time. On the topic of catalogs, I just wouldn't take catalogs from people. What I would do is, if you're really interested in working with a supplier, just ask that supplier to email you the catalog electronically. That's the best way to do it, because otherwise you'll end up with a huge stack of catalogs. And whether you've got a rucksack or one of those dragging suitcases on wheels, like, it's just going to make life more difficult for you. You don't need to be carrying extra weight. So just ask the suppliers to email you a catalog after the show. Tell them to make a note on your business card. So when you sit down and have a meeting with them, just tell them to make a note to email you their electronic catalog. It makes a lot more sense than carrying hard copies of things around with you all day. Plus, you'll just end up with more than you can handle, and then taking them back to your home country again. That's probably going to be like another 5 to 10 kilos in your suitcase that you just don't need, because there's probably quite a lot of shopping that you're going to want to do whilst you're in Guangzhou, but that's a topic for another day. What else? Local currency. Make sure you've got about 1,000 RMB on you. 1,000 RMB is about 110 pounds, more or less. I think that's about 150 euros, and I'll let you guys work out the dollar amount. But make sure that you've got cash on you. simply because if you decide to leave the show early, so when you're at your hotels will be running shuttle buses to and from the Canton Fair, but they'll leave at very specific times and they'll only go twice a day. So they'll pick you up once from your hotel in the morning and pick you up from the fair in the evening and drop you back off to the fair again. Alongside all the different kind of time elements and the way you're going to structure the fair, make sure that you've planned it out really well in terms of how you're going to visit your suppliers and who you're going to see at the fair. So have a very clear structure as to which stands you plan on visiting, when you plan on visiting them, and where they're going to be based. On the Canton Fair website, you can probably find a list of all the different suppliers that are going to be attending, and you can very quickly write down in the morning or in the evening or a week before or however long before the stand number that you want to visit, and keep it very focused. Don't stop at every stand along the way which looks like they've got a great product. Really just be laser focused and just continue to just be very on track to visiting the suppliers that you want to meet with first. And then if you have time afterwards, then go and spend the time to go and take a look around the other relevant sections in whatever niche or product category that you're selling. So yeah, ATM withdrawals are very expensive in China, so it's probably better to either buy the local currency at the airport or at Guangzhou airport, or whichever airport you're landing in China. I wouldn't take money out from ATMs when you're there using your foreign cards, simply because it's going to be quite expensive for you to withdraw RMB using your own local currency. So make sure that you convert your cash first, and make sure, as I said, that you've got about 1,000 RMBs worth on you for every day that you're at the show. Because if you do want to leave the show early and you want to jump in a taxi for whatever reason, you're going to need cash. If you want to eat at the show, if you want to buy stuff when you're there, if you want to buy samples, for example, the supplier might ask you for a small fee. Most of the time they ideally shouldn't, but they might do. So make sure that you've got enough cash just to be able to keep you going throughout the day. Contingency plans are always good to have in place. So the next tip I can offer you is when you're meeting each supplier, and this is the way I do it. However you do it, there's probably a far more efficient technological way to do this using your iPad. But what I do personally is I'll staple the business card into a notebook, I'll make notes, and then at the end of the day, when I get back to the hotel that same night, or at least really early the following morning, I will make a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet with the product name, the supplier's contact details, their email addresses, their telephone numbers, and a brief description as to what was discussed. Simply because if you're going back through your notes and you're trying to look at random pictures that you've taken on your phone of different stands and different business cards in front of stands, it's just going to be overwhelming to do all of that when you get back home. It's better to do that when you're in China, because that might actually spark something else off. You might decide you want to go back and have a discussion with that particular supplier about something that you forgot to ask them whilst you're actually there. So that's another handy little tip. Have WeChat installed on your phone. This is another thing. So WeChat is basically the equivalent of our WhatsApp. Everybody obviously knows what WeChat is. If you've been in e-commerce for long enough and you've already bought and sold products from China, then you will know that WeChat is the way people communicate in China. And the easiest thing to do is to get a supplier to scan your QR code, or you scan theirs, and then you're in immediate contact with them. But with regards to WeChat, it's quite a good opportunity for, once you've actually scanned that person's QR code, if you go into their WeChat profile before they get a chance to kind of block you from seeing their pictures, because WeChat acts as Instagram, Facebook, and even these days it's kind of their Amazon, their selling platform as well. You can actually look in their pictures that they featured and see what kind of pictures they're putting out. That's quite a good way to gauge as to whether they're a trading company or not, and whether they're selling anything and everything, or whether they're very focused on one specific product, which is what you want to be discussing with them. If you're visiting the Canton Fair and you know that your suppliers are going to be there, I personally wouldn't tell them. Really, I genuinely would show up and surprise them, which leads on to the topic of bringing gifts. So this is something else that you want to bring with you. Alongside all that medication, health food and everything else, make sure that you take gifts for the suppliers that you have worked with in the past, that you are probably going to see at some point in China. But the suppliers you know that you've already worked with at the Canton Fair, just surprise them. Don't tell them you're going. And there's a really good reason for that. Because you want to see how genuine and how authentic those suppliers are in terms of how loyal are they to you as a customer. Are they featuring your products at their stand? And I've seen this happen on more than one occasion where for my previous clients or for my own e-commerce businesses, I've gone to a supplier stand and found them featuring a product which was private labeled specifically for us, or something that we had customized or had tooled up, and the supplier had that displayed at the show. So this is another good way to gauge how good the suppliers that you might currently be dealing with are if they are attending the Canton Fair. So better to just kind of surprise them. Hopefully they won't have done that to you, but if they have, at least it's a good heads up. But definitely do bring gifts with you for your suppliers. They'll appreciate it. Anything, whatever it might be, they appreciate all foreign goods. So whether that's tea or perfumes, or it all depends on who you've been communicating and liaising with. I'll probably do another video at some point as to what are the most appropriate gifts to take to your suppliers.